Wir sind hier mit Jann Klose, Mannheimer, Nairobi, Johannesburger, wieder Hamburger, Ohio, Clevelander. Damn, where have you not lived, Jan?
South America.
Is that a
But I'm
place you?
actually heading to Brazil in October to play for the first time. That's the plan. To
Okay,
Sao
yeah.
Paulo to do a couple of shows there, yeah.
Yeah, you've done a lot of traveling and a lot of living in different places. Of
It's the only
course,
way to live.
yeah, primarily Germany, of course, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? Now it's primarily the United States. I mean, I've lived in the US for 20 years plus now. So this
Right.
is yeah, this
And
is
your schooling was pretty much shared between Germany and South Africa. Um,
German. Yeah,
how,
South Africa was grade school, fifth to fifth grade, then teenage years in Germany, and then exchange student program in US and voice study. So
right. Given, and we're going to come to more about your musical identity in a moment, but given that kind of, if you want to call it split upbringing between various countries, what did that, in your perception, form any part of your identity as a musician? Like, has it informed much of your artistry?
well, yeah, of course, but I think more than that, it's informed who I am as a person. You know, the thing about traveling that is so useful, I think, to anybody that has the chance to do it is you realize how similar people are, no matter where you go. You know that line from that I think it's yeah Paul McCartney, Stevie Wonder. We were just talking about Stevie because he had a big birthday, 75, and people are the same wherever you go. It's really true. Like if you boil it down to the basics, people do the same things, and we think we're all so different. You know, we're not.
Right.
And when you travel and you meet people from different backgrounds, you realize, yeah, it's that we're all the same. You know, we just have different cultural upbringing and habits that form through that, and habits that are some of them are, of course, genetic, and it's your makeup, your genetic makeup, nature versus nurture, that whole thing.
Yeah.
But generally, yeah, we're the same. That's what I think.
With so many people, as you say, but so many, it's like you're saying we have much more in common than we are different, as people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wish we would remember that more often.
But you've in that same vein, you've worked with so many different people through your career, or played with them, or shared stages with them. I was wondering while I was reading through some of your background, whether there were any specific things you could think of that playing with all these people, some of them are quite famous, others maybe not so much, but what were this stuff that you drew into yourself working with so many different people?
Yeah, it depends on the person, the thing that is always dangerous is if you meet someone that is known or that even you're a fan of, you know, it can be dangerous to look at them in the same way that you did before. So something that you have to do that is useful is you have to come in with a certain amount of confidence and belief in yourself, and you have to be ready for that, because they've already done a lot of other things, more so than you, and there isn't much that's going to impress them anymore, except that if you can just step up to the plate, so to speak. So it's important to really learn how to be yourself in this business. I think that's one
Wow.
of the biggest lessons, including all your insecurities, especially if you want to be a songwriter. You kind of have to embrace the things about you that are not perfect and say, well, that's why I have something to write about. You know, all the pain and trauma. We're all human and none of us are perfect. And I think embracing that actually
Well,
gives you power.
on that note, you've just written a new song, right, with Everett Bradley. And that's a curious name to throw up in conversation, given his background. And I was just wondering, firstly, how did you guys meet?
Well, it's a long story, but we met through the scene in New York. I knew who he was. He knew who I was. We got together for a drink at some point, and it blossomed into a long-term friendship. And he played with me for a while. We were toured together for a bit, but at the time, I think when I met him, I think he had just become an official member of Bon Jovi, which was, a sort of strange thing to then, oh, I'm doing this like club show with John Bon Jovi, and can you come? And so, all of a sudden there's John Bon Jovi and like, hi, how are you? And his teenage son and his wife and standing right in front of me so it was kind of like being thrown into an environment that I sort of only saw from the outside. But that's a long time ago now, and then him and I he did a little bit of touring with me in Germany, but on the co-write stuff, and he played shows with us in New York when we did, album release shows, like when In Tandem came out, which Gallo picked up in South Africa. When we did the release show in New York, he played with us, and other ones as well that we did here. But the writing thing is new. So he was at one of my other shows about a year ago or so, I think, something like that. And he came up to me afterwards and we talked for a little bit and he said, "Listen, I have some ideas and I want to throw at you. Let's get together and do some writing." So we did, and he started throwing beats at me. He was like, "I think like I want to come at this from a new angle, like a different angle than you've done before." And I was like, "Great, like any kind of change, anything that kind of knocks me out of
Right.
normalcy or safety, I'm always grateful for." Because we all tend to do that. I tend to do that, go for something. Oh, this will be nice. Yeah, this will be easy. And so anytime someone sort of like says, no, no, let's try something new, let's try something different, I try to do that to myself. But it's nice when someone else does it because then you can sort of piggyback off of their intent and their viewpoint, imagination, whatever. And so we did, and he was like, "Oh, how about like this kind of a groove, this kind of a groove, this," and then we would just pick some, and I would come up with a melody because I'm like a melody guy when it comes to writing, and it that just kind of set us off in this direction of what When I'm With You is, and there are three other ones on the new record that'll come out next year that go with that same sort of intent, And it's always about intent at the end of the day. Like what is it you want to do? What is the desire that you have that you want to achieve, that you want to talk about, write about, what is that? So you have to zone in on that, and he's great at that. So it really pushed me.
Wonderful. I've taken a listen to the song, a little preview. It's only coming out here in a few days' time. Um, it has a really lovely light feel to it. It's easy to get into. Um, where did the song come from for you?
So I was talking to a music supervisor friend of mine, and I was like, "So what are people, and I don't usually do this, with like, what are people listening to? What should I write about, And he was like, "Well, these are the kinds of songs I'm getting," and I thought, and he said, "Oh yeah, people are, writing about their bestie, their best friends, like," and I was like, that's a nice idea. I haven't done that before."
Mm.
And so I brought that to Everett, and he was like, "Oh, that's a great idea." But then it turned into a lot more than that, which I'm really glad about actually, because, I think if you become too sort of locked into writing about something that someone wants you to, or that you should be writing about, or that's popular, if you're following a trend, it's not going to work out. But in this case, I liked the idea, I really did, because I hadn't written about it, so I wanted to um, find a way to express the feeling that you get when you have a friend or a lover or family or even a pet, like something's as mundane as something that you feel connected to, someone you feel connected to, or spiritual something, um, that makes you feel like you are can be completely at ease with yourself. So I actually thought of one of my best friends that I have in life, who I've had since, one of my best friends since teenage years. And I can tell her anything, and she will not ever judge me. Even if it's the worst thing that, you've heard, and I mean, I'm not, I'm not dangerous, So, but, but I thought, it would be great to write about that feeling of safety that you get when you're with, or trust, when you're with someone that will not judge you no matter what it is. So that's at the core of it.
That's a great topic yeah, to contemplate in song. I have to say, yeah, absolutely, quite unusual. Now you mentioned your a friend of yours being a music supervisor. Just for those that might be listening or watching, um, music supervisor in the context of at least TV and film are people that deal with finding music recorded by artists like yourself and placing them within film and TV context. Um, that made me think about some of the other stuff that you've done. You have, in fact, worked in sort of parallel avenues like television and theater, and your touring company experience in theater. That's another thing that seems quite unusual for. I don't want to say unusual, but many artists don't get into that sort of avenue. You did.
Mhm.
How does that break into what you do, or how you feel, as you said, shapes your musical identity, if at all?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I love theater. It just wasn't it was a career path, like for like a hot year and a half, 2 years, maybe a little bit more than that even, because I actually wrote a show that was performed off Broadway in New York in 2005 called Moonlight Interior. Um, but the I did the national tour of Jekyll and Hyde when it was on Broadway when I first came to New York. I did the Who's Tommy, Jesus Christ Superstar in Europe, um, after it had been on Broadway, and as a singer actor. And it was a great way to earn a living as a singer, and it gave me a lot of confidence that that I had value as a singer and as an actor. So there's something I could do that was of service and that worked for them, for the production company. However, working in that field is brutal. It's brutal. You are they use you up. They do.
Oh, wow.
They really do. They
Yeah.
they take advantage of you as much as they can. It's just the way that the industry is set up, and it's a short window that you have of being able to to do that. I mean, some people do it forever. I didn't want to. After a couple of years of that, I realized that songwriting was more important for me personally, and I felt like I was missing something from my creative life. But it did give me a lot of confidence, and I got paid, which was great. And I put a little bit of money away, and I started pursuing a career as a songwriter. I remember my voice teacher at the time, Claudia Catania. She's still around. She's still here in New York, and I see her ever so often. And she said, when I told her I wanted to be a songwriter, she was very upset because she was like, damn boy, you could have been working for years, sweetie. You could have been working for decades, darling." And I said, "Well, I want to be working no matter what, but I have one life, and this is what I want to do. I want to write." So so I said, "Bye, Broadway." Not that it's a forever goodbye, because there's always something, I've always have something that I can do in that world if I want to. So it's not, but yeah, working on your own terms is a great gift, and especially if you have some sort of success with it.
Wonderful. That being said, you've chosen a path. You're 7 albums and 2 EPs in, and you mentioned the new album coming out probably next year sometime. What's the plan going forward from this release to that point?
Finish the record, so it's a lot of I want to finish it as soon as possible so that we have a lot of setup time. And the songs are written, which is great.
Yeah.
So we have a couple more sessions, I think. I don't want to talk too much about it because as far
Okay.
as releasing it, there's still a lot of work to do.
Mm.
But yeah, the path forward is record, record because writing wise, we're just about there. And then I am going to be in Mexico for a bit to do a little bit of playing and a little bit of vacationing, and then I'm going to be in Brazil to do some shows in Sao Paulo in October, and back in Germany in January for some shows in Hamburg and Berlin. So, and then hopefully South Africa next year in the spring. That's the plan. Or your
Wonderful.
fall, your autumn. So like
Yeah.
April, May,
Yeah.
something like that for South
Just
Africa, hopefully.
just FYI, I'm currently on the periphery of working with a grand scale musical production. So if you're looking for work at that time,
I'm always looking for work. That's the thing about being a songwriter. You never stop looking for work,
yeah,
because you always have to write another song. So yeah, absolutely. I'm actually looking for a new promoter in South Africa. So if you know anybody, by all means,
I'll talk to Melissa and see what we can
please,
do.
yeah, please do, please.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and
Pleasure.
great talking to you.
Always.
Like I said, I've heard the song already. I'm quite certain, people are gonna love it. People are gonna absolutely love it. Thank you so much.